Amazing Millionaire reveals his incredible love for the poor cleaning lady after 15 years of ISO. David sat in his towering penthouse, the modern skyline of the bustling suburban town sprawled before him like an elaborate toy set. He was a self-made millionaire, the savvy CEO of a tech startup, with a world that gleamed but felt cold. The view was mesmerizing, yet inside, an unsettling loneliness gnawed at him. 15 years he had watched her from his window, Elena, sweeping the lobby floors, her focus a counterpoint to his chaotic life. She was a cleaning lady, a single mother, and every day, she painted her reality with strokes of resilience that filled him with both admiration and shame. He shook his head, trying to compartmentalize the growing sense of unease. Meetings piled high on his agenda, profit margins hovering over his thoughts, but she lingered like a shadow in the back of his mind. He often caught whispers of her struggle within the walls of his own fortress, and somehow, they intensified the prick of guilt. A single mom on the brink of losing her job due to budget cuts. The thought sliced through him as he shifted in his seat, confronted with the battle brewing deep inside. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The dread quivered in his gut. What did it mean to be wealthy if not to lend a hand to those drowning in the depths of hardship? The weight of his privilege felt like chains pulling him under. With every blog post and industry report he devoured, he battled a paradox. His world was a glamorous escape while hers was a relentless fight for dignity. He held his breath, envisioning her face whenever he caught a glimpse of her. He envisioned the relief in her eyes, the warmth that might bloom, yet, he hesitated. What would she think? A millionaire stepping out to help a cleaning lady? His affluent friends would raise eyebrows with pity masked as concern, painting him as a prince foolishly cavorting in the wrong part of town. David's internal turmoil surged. He was both the privileged knight and a coward shackled by societal expectations. Each day without action felt more burdensome. The tug of silent admiration grew stronger, demanding to breach the walls he had built against vulnerability. How many more days could he watch Elena scrub the floors, unaware of her impact on his heart? The question clawed at him, growing more frantic. With desperation seeping through the crevices of his resolve, David stood at the precipice of confrontation. Either he risked the familiar comforts of his life, or remained a ghost in a gilded cage, a life defined not by connection but by isolation. His heart raced and his hands trembled as he faced the looming decision, stranded between fear and the promise of genuine connection. David took a deep breath, grounding himself in the reality that surrounded him: a vibrant city, a life of abundance, but one that increasingly felt empty. He paced the plush carpet of his penthouse, aware that the walls may echo his thoughts but never offer a solution. A single decision stood in his way, a threshold that separated the person he had become from the person he yearned to be. With each step, a mix of anxiety and excitement coursed through him. What if he spoke to Elena? The woman he admired from afar for years was more than a fleeting image. She symbolized strength, resilience, and grit. He pivoted toward a framed photograph on his desk, an image of himself with smiling colleagues at a corporate retreat. In their eyes, he saw affirmation of success, yet it felt disingenuous. They knew nothing of the moments he spent gazing out at the lobby or wrestling with his conscience. A plan began to form, one that promised danger and liberation in equal measure. What if he facilitated her dreams instead of just offering charity? He could offer her a scholarship somewhere she could harness her strengths, perhaps to explore a new career path. In a flash, the idea of hiring her to consult on office tidiness and efficiency sparked. Could it merge their worlds without painting either in a shade of pity? Each option raised a new set of questions. Would Elena resent the gesture? Was it patronizing to think that a single act of kindness could unravel the weight of her struggles? David grappled with the delicate nature of intent versus perception. He could easily be misunderstood. The very notion made him hesitate. Yet another realization struck: wasn't it far worse to remain passive? The thought of Elena facing budget cuts, of watching her vibrant spirit dim and restriction amidst corporate greed, manifested a deep anger within him. but compulsion to make a choice propelled him towards action. David picked up his phone, hesitating at the screen's glow. How ridiculous that he should be apprehensive about sending a simple message. He initiated a contact with a trembling thumb, typing and deleting words until finally, he composed a straightforward invitation. "Elena, could we talk? I'd love to get to know you better." Sending the message was an exhale, a release from the tension coiled tightly in his chest. He pocketed the phone and moved away from the window, feeling invigorated even as uncertainty knotted in his stomach. The silence echoed heavily, the stillness permeated deeper than the view of the sparkling skyline he had come to resent. Moments turned to minutes, and finally, his phone buzzed, jolting him back into reality. He scanned the reply, heart racing. "Sure, what about?" It was concise but warm, an invitation in itself. As anticipation mixed with anxiety, a new wave of realization hit him. This was only the start. He had an opportunity not just to learn about her but to confront his own fears and biases. What secrets would unfold when he took the steps from within his protective layers into her reality? His mind raced with the possibilities, the urgency for understanding urging him forward. David straightened, determined as he dialed a nearby coffee shop, setting the meeting for that afternoon. As he moved to prepare, a voice whispered in the back of his mind, echoing the realizations he had gathered. This conversation was more than just a means of connecting with Elena, it was a confrontation with his own fears. The moment was coming, he would soon face the vulnerability he had so long avoided. The inner conflict churned violently within him, but what awaited him on the other side of fear was no longer an abstraction. It was a person, Elena, and the narrative of their intersecting lives was just beginning to unfold. As he polished his intentions, David wrestled with an underlying truth that bubbled to the surface. Understanding was the path to connection, but paradoxically, it could be the destruction of everything he thought he knew. The challenge he faced was not simply aligning worlds but dismantling the beliefs that had long shaped his reality. Just as he stepped into the confines of his office to put plans in motion, a nagging question lingered in the air: could a single meeting truly alter the course of both their lives? The coffee shop bustled as David entered, a whirlwind of voices and clinking cups. He spotted a corner table, its half-philosophical ambience bridging comfort and awkwardness. He took a seat, eyes darting to the door, rehearsing words in his mind that felt simultaneously profound and mundane. Each tick of the clock resonated, amplifying the vulnerability he was about to share. He opened his laptop, trying to drown out the noise, but the screen blurred as he imagined Elena's reaction. Would she find his overture genuine? Or would it sound patronizing, laced with the tinted glass of his privilege? Self-doubt whispered insidiously as he flipped through a digital folder of potential job descriptions, but grappling with his growing intentions felt more monumental than any marketing strategy he had ever crafted at work. The clang of the door swung open, pulling his focus. Elena stepped in, her presence luminous amidst the chaos, a woven tapestry of confidence and struggle. She searched the room, her gaze landing on him, and as she made her way over, the air thickened with palpable energy. David's heart pounded in tandem with the barista's rhythmic grind of coffee beans. "Hi, David." Her smile was genuine, unraveling tension like a warm breeze on a winter's day. "Hi, Elena," he replied, trying to find comfort in her familiarity. Both struggled with the surface pleasantries perched precariously on the precipice of deeper dialogue. As they settled into a conversation, David feigned casual interest, while his thoughts screamed with urgency beneath the surface. He was acutely aware of their contrasting worlds, Elena navigating a path defined by necessity, and himself floating through realms of choice. The starkness of reality became clearer with each word exchanged. "What brings you here?" she asked, leaning forward as if probing beneath his facade. "I wanted to talk about ideas," he stumbled, then cleared his throat. "I've been thinking about how you could apply your skills beyond just this place. I mean, you have an eye for organization, efficiency." Elena's brow furrowed, an indignant spark igniting in her eyes. "So, you think I need a new job? That this isn't enough?" Her tone held an edge, a challenge that pierced through his initial intentions. "No, that's not what I mean," he rushed to clarify, feeling the weight of judgment squarely on his shoulders. "I just thought maybe you could explore other avenues, but I don't want it to come off as pity." He watched her expression shift, a flicker of hurt mixed with indignation beneath a curtain of calm. "You think I lack ambition just because I clean?
You think my worth is tied to what I do for a living?
David froze, realization crashing over him. The very act he envisioned as a compliment now revealed his privilege and ignorance. His impulsive dreams of mentoring her began to dissolve into guilt-laden thoughts.
What had he assumed about her? Did opportunity really hinge on career labels?
What I'm trying to say is, he leaned in, his voice barely above a whisper, I see potential in you, not just in a job but in a career where you can shine.
Silence enveloped them, heavy with complexity.
For the first time, he felt the roots of his intentions pull at the fabric of his reality.
Could this moment be a revelation for both of them?
In his desire to connect, he had cast a shadow on her autonomy. Elena took a deep breath, her gaze steadier now, reflecting a mixture of challenge and curiosity.
You don't get it, do you?
It's not just about skills or ambition, it's about respect and seeing people as they are.
Not as projects to fix. David's heart raced, realization dawning, a mirror reflecting a deeper truth he had long avoided.
It was never his job to reshape her, but rather engage with her fully, to respect the strength she had cultivated in her reality as genuine as his own. The coffee shop around them faded to a distant hum as he understood. This was not merely a meeting between two people from different worlds, but a journey into unraveling his biases.
The question lingered in the air, thicker than the aroma.
Of espresso, could he adjust his perspective enough to truly connect, or would his well-meaning intentions only serve to further divide them?
As the conversation morphed into a delicate balance of tension and connection, the stakes grew.
He could feel the shift, both of them standing at a crossroads, poised at the brink of vulnerability. What awaited him beyond this meeting could either shatter his preconceptions or demand an uncomfortable transformation he was unprepared to embrace.
As Elena spoke, her voice steady and poignant, David found himself pondering a deeper inquiry. Would this transformative moment catalyze real change within himself, or was it all precariously set to unravel? David's thoughts spun as he listened to Elena, each syllable scrutinizing his past assumptions while illuminating fragments of an unsettling truth.
Beneath the surface of their dialogue lay a chasm of misunderstanding that both, unwittingly, had contributed to. He had entered this meeting eager to uplift someone he deemed worthy of more, a misguided expression of his privilege, but now, faced with Elena's fierce authenticity, he felt the scales tipping heavily in her favor. Her determination radiated as she spoke about her daily responsibilities, shared struggles, and the satisfaction she derived from her work. It was a narrative rooted in resilience, a perspective he hadn't considered. For her, cleaning tables and serving coffee was not a limitation, but a chosen path reflecting her values.
Pride blossomed on her face, and he recognized the strength buried beneath layers of misconstrued empathy.
I didn't mean to offend, he finally said, desperation creeping into his tone. He searched for words that might repair the fissure forming between them.
I want to understand. I genuinely admire how you navigate everything. You can admire my talent, David, she shot back, voice unwavering.
But don't confuse my work with a need for rescue.
There's dignity in what I do. Those words struck him as a lightning bolt, illuminating unaddressed layers within his own psyche.
He often labeled his trajectory through the corporate maze as fighting for purpose, but had he clung to this notion only to validate his choices? Was he, in essence, avoiding the mirror that reflected his own discontent? The image of his reflection faltered, and he felt more lost than ever. Elena slowly leaned back, her gaze softer, a warning against the temptation to indulge in guilt.
You're here envisioning something for me, but what about your own narrative? Have you ever thought about how people see you?
Her question landed like a blow, awakening the dormant insecurities he had buried beneath ambitions.
Was he merely a kind-hearted millionaire hoping to appear savior-like, or could he be something more meaningful?
The revelation of different perspectives pushed David toward introspection, simmering beneath the apparent discomfort. He looked out the window, the bustling street outside reflecting his turmoil, a symphony of lives unwritten and destinies in flux. The smudged glass was a barrier he could no longer ignore. Each passerby was carving their own narrative, without requiring someone lofty to navigate for them. Had he drawn the lines of their worth through the lens of his privilege?
Turning back to Elena, he asked, what if I want to understand more than just your work?
Her eyes sparkled with curiosity.
Then ask real questions.
Get to know me beyond the cleaning lady label I don't even consider.
Their conversation transformed into a profound exchange, layers unfurling like petals.
David began to grasp the importance of actively listening, of opening himself up as a vessel for representation rather than redemption. With every prompt he offered, he stepped deeper, navigating the maze not from a position of power, but one willing to elevate dialogue instead of assumption. Yet, as their discourse danced from aspirations to life philosophies, David wrestled with the mounting realization that understanding Elena meant dismantling the localized privilege he had unknowingly clung to all these years. The tides of change beckoned him, promising an uncharted exploration unflinching before the complexities of socioeconomic realities. Elena's voice cut through the haze, a sudden urgency sharpening her tone.
But David, are you ready for what's at stake here? You can't just turn away when things get uncomfortable.
For the first time, he felt it. The precarious balance of their experimental connection hovered in the air, thick with potential yet vulnerable to collapse. David's mind raced, weighing his intentions against emerging fears of commitment to change. Did he have the courage to delve deeper into her world, accept the raw truths that could reshape his own reality, or would he
retreat into the comfort of safety?
As he pondered the depths of this inquiry, the path before him sprawled infinitely, reflecting the tension of every decision yet to come. The café's familiar aroma wafting through the air faded into white noise, everything hinged on the question looming ahead like an unwritten chapter demanding exploration, a chapter that could redefine his sense of purpose.
Would he dare to seize the opportunity for transformation, or was he destined to linger in the echoes of stagnation?
David felt the weight of Elena's words pressing against his mind, a provocative challenge that stirred something deep within him. As their conversation unfolded, he began to see himself not as a benefactor, but as an explorer of the complex layers of identity that shaped their interaction. Pushing beyond the instinct to rescue, he found himself yearning to connect, authenticity unblemished by his preconceptions.
Tell me, he ventured, curiosity kindling in his voice, what inspires you to embrace what you do? It's not often that I see someone radiate such contentment in their work. Elena tilted her head, surprised but intrigued by his genuine inquiry. It's simple, really. The challenge of every shift is an opportunity.
I create spaces for people to gather, share laughter, and escape their realities, if only for a moment. Each coffee I serve is imbued with the spirit of connection. As she spoke, David's skepticism began to dissolve, replaced by an intense awareness of how sheltered he had allowed himself to become. The corporate realm that consumed his life seemed small compared to the richness of Elena's experience, and the depth of her words cut through his usual detachment.
It was a meal served on a plate of vulnerability.
For the first time, David acknowledged the limitations of his own perspective, the privilege that had insulated him from the pulse of a reality like Elena's. Striking a balance seemed insurmountable, a daunting shift he had not anticipated.
And what about your dreams?
Do you ever wish to step outside this role and pursue something greater? David noticed a brief flash of uncertainty cross her face, like a flicker of flame struggling against a gust of wind.
Of course, I do. Everyone does. But defining greater is subjective, David. What seems like success to you could feel like a prison to someone else.
His heart raced at the profundity of her insight, illuminating the unjust confines of ambition he had grasped for so long. In that moment, David realized that he had equated success solely with wealth and status, a narrow view that had led to a lifetime of discontent. He had never considered that the most liberating form of success might instead lie in authenticity and self-acceptance.
What if I told you, he said, his voice more confident now, that I've spent years entangled in my own conception of success, yet I feel the emptiness deep inside?
Rarely, if ever, did I step back to wonder why I prioritize certain milestones over genuine fulfillment.
A knowing smile crept across Elena's lips. It's a seismic realization, but it's a part of the journey we all traverse.
A struggle to peel away the layers of imposed expectations and find your own truth. The thought sent tremors down his spine, the facade he had built around himself was crumbling. With newfound clarity, David questioned just how far he could push this transformation.
Was he ready to confront the deeper, darker truths about himself, and the systems he had participated in, that had ultimately strengthened his privilege? Each revelation weighed heavily on his conscience. Could he embrace the idea that he was deserving of both change and connection, not as a savior, but as a co-learner navigating the intricacies of life alongside Elena?
Yet, every layer unwrapped revealed deeper complexities, interrogating his desires and motivations. Would his corporate colleagues sacrifice their views on success if it meant exposing themselves to a broader spectrum of authenticity? The thought made him uneasy. Before he could fully digest these thoughts, Elena interrupted his spiraling thoughts. "There is something you need to understand, David. This isn't simply a conversation of philosophies. It's about action. Are you willing to shake the foundations of your life to embrace a new narrative?" Her question hung heavily in the air, crackling with the promise of profound change or the risk of total collapse. The tension between fear and conviction coiled within him, forging an insatiable curiosity about the road he might dare to traverse. David swallowed hard as he stared into the depths of Elena's unflinching gaze, a mirror reflecting not just her struggles, but his own willingness to confront the uncomfortable truths about his identity. He understood that a choice lay ahead, one that could redefine not just the trajectory of their conversation, but the essence of who he was. The moment of reckoning pressed in as he pondered. Could he truly step beyond the privileged walls he had built, risking everything to venture into uncharted territories of understanding and companionship? Or would he choose to slide back into the comfortable shadows, shielding himself from the necessary transformations they both desperately needed? The stakes were becoming revolutionary, a crossroads woven into the very fabric of their existence. David could either venture into the depths of discomfort, risking everything for connection and understanding, or step back into the safety of the familiar, forever haunted by the possibilities he neglected to explore. The call for change reverberated. Would he answer? David's heart raced as he contemplated the weight of Elena's question. The prospect of change tugged at him like a whispering wind, urging him toward action. How could he have made it this far without recognizing the depth of a life lived solely for achievement? He was a figure perched atop a mountain of success, but below lay a vast valley of unrealized potential, shrouded in shadows of fear and uncertainty. Time slipped by unnoticed as David and Elena lingered at the cafe, the background hum of chatter and clinking cups fading into a hollow echo. The haze of caffeinated air felt electric, charged with the possibilities of transformation. He leaned forward, a resolve quieting the storm brewing inside him. If I were to embrace this idea, what would that even look like? Elena nodded slowly, her brown eyes gleaming with an understanding that felt almost intimate. It's an unraveling, David. An acknowledgement of where you stand and who you are. For many, it means stripping away layers of societal expectations. It's a journey to understand that vulnerability is strength, not a weakness. Her words resonated, striking a chord deep within the well of his experiences. Vulnerability. The word conjured a sense of trepidation, yet it also felt like the key to a door he had sealed shut so tightly. Vulnerability, he echoed, testing the fluidity of the concept on his tongue. How does one learn to embrace that? It's a practice, she replied. It could start small. Share your thoughts. Allow yourself to admit when you're lost or uncertain, rather than masking those feelings with bravado. It's in these moments, the raw honesty, that connections flourish. His mind raced through the countless interactions alongside colleagues where he had donned a shield of confidence, hiding his insecurities beneath tailored suits and rehearsed smiles. Was it truly that simple? What if it backfires, he asked, trying to navigate his anxiety. What if those around me respond negatively? Then that's a part of the process too. Elena's voice was soft yet firm, bridging the gap between their disparate worlds. You won't always be met with understanding, but those who matter will stay. It's about finding your tribe, those who support your growth, as you discover what matters to you. He nodded slowly. There was wisdom in her words. Perhaps it was time to confront the fragile threads that held his corporate identity together. Could he truly dismantle the facade? The thought paralyzed him, yet it also awakened a flicker of hope. Okay, he managed to say, each word weighed down by both fear and exhilaration. I'm willing to take that first step. But I don't know what that looks like in practice. Start with your honesty. The corners of Elena's lips curved upward, a warm spark lighting her demeanor. Speak openly with someone at work. Share your frustrations or doubts and see how it unfolds. Are there moments where you feel stifled by the corporate world? Express that. David glanced down at the coffee cup in his hands, its warmth seeping into him like a balm for his trepidation. This path was fraught with risks, yet in the uncertainty lay a promise of liberation.
But what if I find that my colleagues don't understand? He questioned, a thread of apprehension woven through his thoughts.
Then that's valuable information too, she replied, an unwavering confidence etched into her expression.
It will guide you.
Understanding who aligns with your evolving self will illuminate the next steps in your journey.
As David absorbed this, shadows of doubt lingered, yet something electric coursed through his veins.
The prospect of being truly seen, in a world he had painstakingly crafted to safeguard his image, ignited a spark. He took a deep breath, envisioning the forthcoming conversations as delicate, yet impactful. A plan began to take shape as he mulled over strategies to express his feelings. That transition led to a flicker of momentum building inside him, the whisper of change growing louder. But amid the newfound determination, a twinge of fear simmered at the edge of his
consciousness. What if he inadvertently unearthed buried truths about himself and his colleagues he simply wasn't prepared to handle?
David felt the ground shift beneath him, a reality waiting to erupt in shocking clarity. The shakeup could either galvanize his journey toward authenticity or plunge him further into the depths of denial. He looked back at Elena, who was studying him intently, her expression both challenging and encouraging.
You'll never know until you try, David. Are you ready to embrace the uncomfortable truths?
As uncertainty swirled around him like a dense fog, he realized that the duel was not only with his colleagues but within himself, the conflict between action and inaction. The thought sent a thrill through his chest, igniting an urgency he could not ignore. Driven by a mix of anxiety and anticipation, he met her gaze with fierce determination.
Yes. Yes, I am.
As the weight of that commitment hung in the air, an unexpected rush of adrenaline surged within him, propelling him toward a reckoning that awaited with unforeseen consequences looming just ahead.
Would he unravel the truth of his identity, or would he resist the tide of change, swallowed by fear of the unknown?
The meeting room felt sterile, the air thick with tension as David sat at the polished oak table. His usual demeanor of confidence began to wane, replaced with a creeping uncertainty. He resolved to speak his truth, to break open the facade he had cultivated, but now that the moment was upon him, doubts crowded his mind. Today's agenda, his manager's voice pierced through his swirling thoughts, is a review of the recent project.
Let's hear your thoughts, David. He swallowed hard, feeling the weight of all eyes upon him.
His colleagues, faces he knew so well, now felt like strangers.
Would they accept this new version of him? He could sense the undercurrents of expectation, presentation, rationality, unwavering confidence.
It had always been his armor, but today, he was unprepared to wear it. I think, he began, his voice steadier than he felt, we should discuss the challenges some team members faced during the project. There was a moment of silence, and then the subtle buzz of skepticism from across the table.
Challenges?
One colleague scoffed, smirking.
We all know you thrive on pressure, David. Why not just power through like you always do? He clenched his fists under the table.
It was harder than he imagined.
But he could almost hear Elena's encouragement whispering through his mind, be honest. As the smirk faded from his colleague's face, David chose to lean into the discomfort.
He took a breath, grounding himself. Actually, he continued, there were times I struggled, kept second-guessing my decisions and felt lost on how we would deliver. The admission hung in the air like a shooting star, unexpected and almost magical. The room shifted imperceptibly, attention turned as the tension crackled. What was once a cluster of finance professionals became a shared space of vulnerability. He pressed on, fueled by the newfound sense of liberation.
In fact, I saw others grappling with similar feelings of uncertainty.
Maybe if we talked more openly about what isn't working, we can evolve together. He caught glimpses of surprise flicker across his colleagues' faces.
Instead of outrage or defensiveness, a softening of the traditional armor began to occur.
As they registered his words, he noticed a few exchanging glances that conveyed both disbelief and recognition, perhaps seeing their own struggles reflected in his honesty. David's right, Mia spoke up, the analytical team lead, her voice steady yet warm.
It's important to admit when we are facing obstacles, rather than just pushing through. It's a process we could truly benefit from.
David felt a blend of relief and exhilaration wash over him. His heart raced, not with fear but with the thrill of unexpected camaraderie. What had started as an uncertain endeavor to share vulnerability had unveiled a collective yearning for connection. But even within that moment of triumph, a wave of doubt crashed over him. Had he revealed too much? Would this newfound openness diminish their perception of his capability? Will this really change how we tackle projects? Someone chimed in from the back of the room, raising an eyebrow. David's stomach twisted, but he couldn't retreat now. I believe it can, he asserted, the conviction in his voice lifting him above his insecurities. By creating a space where we can express our doubts and challenges, we'll build not just better projects but a stronger team. We owe it to ourselves. As he spoke, he couldn't help but notice the gradual transformation of attitudes around him. Cautious nods of agreement began to sprinkle the table where before only skepticism had sat. It felt as if the truth had ignited an ember in others, drawing them out, away from their own fears, yet, hidden beneath this surface success, deeper concerns gnawed at him. This was just a beginning, a baby step in a long journey toward his authentic self. What of the greater battles he'd have to confront not just in this meeting but in the core of his corporate existence? Was it merely the surface he'd scratched, or would the real reckoning come when he had to face the resistance from higher-ups and the powerful structures that dictated their industry's ethos? As the meeting drew to a close, David was left with a maelstrom of thoughts swirling. Had he truly changed the narrative, or was this merely a momentary flicker of courage? As he left the room, the tingling sensation of both apprehension and excitement started to settle back into his bones, igniting a relentless questioning: how far was he willing to go for this new identity he was forging? With the support of those previously considered allies, could he confront the darker truths of his professional life? The unfurling path ahead shimmered with promise, laced with another layer of anxiety. The next meeting approached, a test of everything he had set in motion. Would he rise again, or would he shrink back into the shadows of expectation? The day after the meeting, David walked through the office with a strange mixture of determination and apprehension churning in his stomach. The air felt different. Rather than the suffocating weight of expectation, it seemed charged with a current of possibility. Conversations echoed as he passed colleagues exchanging opinions, laughter drifting in and out as he wondered if they had changed their perceptions of him. In his office, David hunched over his laptop, but the usual thrill of meeting deadlines now came tinged with an urgency to continue building on what he had started. He scanned his email, hit refresh multiple times, but the responses from his colleagues felt meager, the usual report requests and project outlines lacking the open dialogue he had hoped for. It was a reminder that words could be easy, but action's actual commitment to change were what counted. He needed a plan. What if he gathered the team again, but this time focused on further strategies for fostering transparency? The last meeting had felt transformative, yet it was evident that offering vulnerability was merely a beginning. David thought of Mia's endorsement and realized it could serve as a catalyst. He could lean into her willingness to support a healthier team environment. The clock ticked incessantly as he plotted an informal gathering, a strategy session disguised as a casual lunch. In doing so, he hoped to explore not just the prominent pressures of deadlines or evaluations, but the unresolved challenges that whispered in the corners of everyone's minds. With a deep breath, he shot off an email: "Join me for lunch next week? Let us chat about how to make our work life a little more collaborative and supportive." There was no grand expectation, it was merely a nudge toward something different he craved. Yet, as he closed the laptop, another wave of unease crashed over him. Would they truly engage? Would they still view him with skepticism? David recognized that admitting vulnerability didn't guarantee he would inspire others to do the same. As lunch day arrived, he meticulously arranged the tables a circle rather than the usual rows to foster openness. He poured water into glasses, the sound echoing suddenly loud under the weight of his thoughts. The seating blocked the view of exits, making the gathering feel intimate, almost as if he was pulling everyone into a shared orbit. There would be no numbers or graphs here, just real talk. When his colleagues began to trickle in, David noticed the mix of expressions, some curiosity, some skepticism, others outright intrigue. The walls of formality began to crack as they settled in. We need to discuss how we can openly express obstacles we face not just as individuals but as a team. Are there processes or expectations you feel we could address? David began, raising his eyes to scan the room. Silence settled, interrupted occasionally by a cautious throat clearing, but he pressed on. I believe if we're open about the hurdles we hit, we can create solutions and even share resources more effectively. He felt a surge of adrenaline, a spark ignited by the surprising earnestness in his own voice.
I felt overwhelmed.
I can't remember the last time I didn't bite off more than I could chew, said Karen, a soft-spoken analyst as she leaned forward, earnestness glimmering in her eyes. Maybe if we shared our workloads, we could balance better.
The floodgates slowly opened as others began to introduce their struggles too.
One colleague confessed the fears of presenting, another admitted to falling short of deadlines due to personal issues. David watched, astonished, as they unearthed buried frustrations that danced just below the surface. This open exchange transformed the timid gathering into a river of shared experience that pulsed with energy, yet, amid the empowerment bloomed an undeniable discomfort. As stories continued, a growing part of him wondered if he could genuinely hold space for all this. Was he equipped to navigate the messy realities of others' vulnerability? The meeting concluded not with answers but with a deepening resolve his own and, it seemed, the group's. They absorbed one another's experiences, crafting threads that would weave them closer as a unit. Walking back to his office, David felt lighter yet acutely aware of the tensions lying beneath this new open space they were forming. Each exposure left him directly in the crosshairs of personal tests. He had begun encouraging others to reveal themselves, but would he still have the courage to fully engage with his own vulnerabilities? As he sat down, he held that question tightly. One hidden darkness waited for the right moment to strike, coiled and ready to challenge this intricate web they were weaving. Was it only a matter of time before the facade he had cracked would come crashing down around him? The following days were a blur, and David felt the inertia of his small victory pushing him forward. Each morning, a new wave of anticipation washed over him as he entered the office, scanning the environment for signs of cohesion among his colleagues. Yet, as much as he reveled in the exchanged nods and quick smiles, doubt clawed at the edges of his mind. Each interaction with his team left him wondering if he was, paradoxically, moving towards something significant or simply leaning into the disarray he had initially sought to heal. As conversations about workloads and personal struggles evolved into laughter and confessions, a gnawing sensation settled within him, a realization that while he facilitated this newfound transparency, he was still unearthing his own buried truths. In quiet moments, David took to reflecting on an interaction with Mia from the lunch gathering. In a casual but pointed manner, she had said, "You know, owning our stories is powerful, but avoiding our own isn't." Her words echoed, lingering in his mind as if they had been etched with the very ink of discovery.
The truth hung in the air like an invisible fog. What was he avoiding?
Determined to unravel this, he scheduled a one-on-one with Mia, leveraging her earlier endorsement for a deeper connection.
He intended to dissect his motivations and explore how to align them with the team's emergent environment.
When she walked into his office, there was no formality, just two minds engaged in a dance of honesty. "Mia," he began, leaning against his desk, "how do you feel about the changes we've been making?" "Honestly, David, it's refreshing," she replied, the corners of her mouth curving upward in a cautious smile.
"But I do sense some hesitance whenever we veer too close to discussing our own issues."
Her insight hit him with a visceral jolt. He had been so preoccupied with guiding others to expose their vulnerabilities that he skirted around confronting his own. "What do you think I'm afraid of?" he queried, the words tumbling out before his brain could rein them in. "The same things most of us are," she said, narrowing her gaze with sincerity. "Fear of failure, fear of inadequacy. But you know, acknowledging that doesn't make you weaker, it makes you more relatable."
A lump formed in his throat. How many times had he masked his doubt behind layers of professionalism?
The veneer of confidence had grown so comfortable that he feared removing it would expose an emptiness, a disconnect from the leader he aspired to be.
"Do you think I can still lead if I show that side of me?"
he asked, the vulnerability in his voice palpable. She smiled gently.
"It's not about leading or following, it's about connecting. The more authentic you are, the more they trust you."
The conversation ignited a flicker of clarity in his mind. There had been an inkling within him all along, a quiet yearning for authenticity amidst the relentless pursuit of success. After Mia left, his heart raced with possibilities. This was an inflection point, an opportunity not just to support his team but to deepen his self-awareness. He reflected on the personal fears that lay beneath layers of professionalism, and peeling back this facade felt less like a risk and more like a journey toward a rightful truth. He envisioned the next team meeting a moment where he could genuinely embody the principles he sought. But what would that look like? Sharing his own struggles felt daunting yet essential. It was a calculated step into uncharted territory. Would he rise to the occasion, allowing the softness of vulnerability to reshape their team dynamic, or would he retreat into the shadows of self-protection? His mind whirled as he mulled over the implications of personal honesty within a workplace. The barrier between professionalism and transparency had begun to thin, but could it withstand the weight of his inner turmoil? Pushing back his chair, he made his way to the whiteboard, scribbling down ideas for a new dialogue, one that would bridge his fears with the aspirations of his team and, he hoped, reaffirm the trust they were slowly building. Step by step, he approached a precipice he never envisioned facing. And as the sun dipped below the horizon that evening, David knew it was time to choose, to hide in the safety of facade or to stride into the unknown, facing the darkness coiled tightly within and hoping it would catalyze the transformation of not just himself, but everyone around him. The next meeting loomed on the horizon. Would his next step shatter boundaries or reinforce the walls he'd built around himself? David stood in the conference room, his heart racing as he faced his colleagues seated around the sleek, polished table. The familiar walls of the office seemed to close in on him, a tangible weight amplifying his internal struggle. Today was different. This was not just another meeting. This was a moment of reckoning, an opportunity to share not just strategies and metrics, but his own truths. He could feel the remnants of his social mask threatening to slip off, but the desire for authenticity surged within him. It was time to push through the discomfort. "I know the last few weeks have felt like a whirlwind for all of us," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. Heads nodded, some eyes glimmering with interest. "But today, I want to talk about something different: personal challenges." Silence fell, the mood shifting from skepticism to curiosity. Taking a deep breath, he pressed on, "I've spent so long pursuing what I believed was success that I lost sight of what truly matters. I battled feelings of inadequacy and chaos beneath my confident exterior." The confession hung in the air, enveloping the room in a cocoon of vulnerability. Each colleague exchanged glances, their expressions hinting at a shared understanding. David seized the moment, plunging deeper. "I realized I've hidden behind the notion of professionalism, afraid to admit my struggles, thinking that it would diminish my credibility." "David, that takes guts to admit," Mia said, her voice cutting through the thick atmosphere. Her tone encouraged others to reveal their own hesitations. "We all deal with pressures. You've opened a door." David's heart soared. This was the connection he had longed for. "I want to create a space where we can be honest, where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness," he stated, a newfound resolve sparking inside him. "It's about recognizing that we can support one another through challenges, not just celebrate victories." The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement, a hopeful energy shared amongst everyone. The shift was palpable. Colleagues began to speak one by one, sharing their own fears and experiences, crafting a narrative woven with honesty. Each revelation peeled away layers of the professional facades they all wore. Dave felt lighter, the collective bond of shared vulnerability weaving stronger connections among the team. As the meeting concluded, a reflection of transformation began to dance among them. They were no longer just colleagues, they had become a collective of individuals honestly navigating uncertainties together. As David left the conference room, he felt buoyed by the realization that they could still achieve success even while confronting their vulnerabilities. Conversion crackled through the air as he stepped into his office, a significant departure from the isolation he once felt in his penthouse. He now carried the understanding that he had not only changed the perspective within himself but had granted permission for others to do the same. Seeking continued unity, he maintained an open-door policy, creating forums that facilitated dialogues beyond tactical approach. In his heart, David knew it was not just about profits, it was about people. Weeks rolled into months. The office culture morphed organically, breathing life into collaboration never seen before. During a quarterly review, higher-ups took notice of the shift, acknowledging not only increased productivity but enhanced morale. The positive feedback carried weight, reflecting accomplishment yet shedding the preconceived notions of ought and should. On a sunny afternoon, amidst a casual team gathering, Elena arrived to deliver a small lunch order. She paused at the entrance, and their eyes met. In that moment, all the breakthroughs, insecurities, and triumphs unlocked within David. He had conquered more than just the workplace dynamic. He had embraced his humanity and found dignity in vulnerability. Yet he approached her, a newfound confidence radiating from him. "Elena," he smiled, "thank you for reminding me of what true resilience looks like,"
she returned,
his gaze with warmth, pride lighting up her face.
"It's mutual, David. I admire how you've transformed."
It takes bravery to acknowledge vulnerability. Standing side by side, they reflected on their journeys. The lines of division that once separated them now blurred. What was once isolation had become connection. David felt a sense of fulfillment welling within him, signifying not just professional success but personal transformation as well. As the sun dipped low on the skyline, casting a glow over the busy streets, he knew he had truly begun to live a life redefined, marked by accomplishment but not just in the ways his former self had envisioned. It was now rooted in connection, authenticity, and the courage to embrace vulnerability, leaving him undeniably fulfilled. This was not just a change in his workspace, it was a journey toward an empowered future, one rich with understanding and purpose. Now, reflect on this journey of transformation and share your thoughts. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss more compelling stories like this, stories that inspire personal growth and connection. Leave a like now to support the algorithm and help others discover this channel. Comment below with your reactions and insights about David's incredible journey. And please, share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who could benefit from these affirming narratives. Don't wait even one more second. Your support is vital for crafting a community of overcoming personal adversity.